SEP Fanfic Readings presents Accidental Proposal by CJRed. Chapter 2. Secrets. Hermione rushed into the Muggle restaurant, over to the table where Thea was waiting for her. They met 4 times a week for dinner, and she found that she started to look forward to these 2 hours all day. The days in between when they didn't meet left her feeling rather restless. On weekends, she stayed with him in his townhouse. She had rented a small flat in Diagon Alley, close to the ministry, where she was interning for the summer. Kingsley Shacklebolt had been made temporary minister for magic right after the battle, and had approached her right away about interning at the ministry. She had agreed immediately, hoping it would help find her parents. She had been right. It had given her the contacts she needed to track down her parents. Sadly, however, finding them had not meant she got them back. Their memories were lost forever. She had found that they had apparently set up a will with the ministry in case such a thing happened. Unbeknownst to Hermione, Dumbledore had spoken with her parents about what might be in store for them, and being mentally incapacitated had been mentioned. Of course, it had been assumed that it may happen due to something like the Cruciatus Curse, not their own daughter's superior memory charm, but the end result was to be the same. The home she had grown up in had been left to her and sold. Its value in gold was now sitting in her vault, and the Weasleys had been named her magical guardians. It was still heartbreaking, losing her parents to the war. Although she considered Ron and Harry family, they weren't really. Having a real brother, it was just special. And although she wasn't necessarily dealing well with the rest of the implications of being a missing knot, having Theo as a brother was absolutely wonderful. She kissed him on the cheek as she hugged him, and then let him pull out the chair for her. "How was your day, sis?" he asked breezily, sitting down. She shrugged. "It was a day. We are pretty close to reaching our goal so that we can offer the program next year." Theodore smiled at her. "Hermione, why don't you just let me donate the money you need?" Hermione sighed. "Because the point is to not have the richest wizarding families fund this, Theo. They need the ministry to do it. It's wonderful that you wish to help, but that's not how they wish to get the funding every year. They don't want to be begging purebloods every spring to keep the program running year after year. Yes, they will do fundraisers, and you can certainly donate then, but they need a budget from Shacklebolt." Her face was fierce, and Theo held up his hands in defeat. "Fine, fine. But you do realize that you can keep this program running for the rest of your natural life with just the interest you make off your half of the knot fortune, right?" She cringed at him. "I am not touching that money. It feels wrong somehow. Besides, no one knows I'm a knot. So wouldn't it be really strange if I suddenly redirected that gold toward the project?" He grinned and then shook his head, grabbing his menu. "You're adorable. We are going to have to announce that you are a knot soon, Hermione. I'm amazed it stayed out of the profit this long, but my uncle knows now. I had to tell him, and he isn't going to keep quiet about this for much longer." Hermione gave a long, suffering sigh, and then felt herself flush at Knot's raised eyebrow. This was an old argument with them lately. Theo was ready to let the world know that she was his sister. Hermione was selfish. She wanted to keep this news to herself. "Are you ashamed of me?" Theo asked quietly. Hermione gasped and looked up. "No, Theo, of course not. I just am enjoying keeping you to myself. My reasoning behind not going public is completely selfish. Plus, I'm not so sure I'm ready to be a knot. You're like royalty. There are going to be all these expectations that I know I won't meet." Theo gave her a slow nod, but looked sad. "I know you are scared, Hermione, but you are my only family now. With Dad gone, it's just you and I really want to be able to see you in public." She gave him a small smile. "Getting tired of Muggle restaurants?" Theo laughed. "No, but I want you to meet my friends. I want to meet your friends. I want to be able to stop and see you at lunch. On top of that, we go back to school in just 2 weeks, Hermione." Hermione sighed. "Fine, you're right. Can we tell my lot first, though? They might be nicer." Theo frowned. "My lot will be nice too, Hermione." She shook her head and tried to hide how uncomfortable she was over this conversation. "Your lot tormented me as a child, Theo." He sighed. "Fine, fair enough then. We will tell your lot first, my lot next, and the profit last. In fact, we can hold off on doing that until we absolutely have to." Hermione nodded and sat back as a strange shiver ran over her. This is going to be nuts. Can we wait until after this week? I mean, I would prefer to announce it while I'm safe at Hogwarts. Theo gave her a small nod and gentle smile. Hermione, it's going to be okay. I promise. A few days later, they sat together at the Weasleys' kitchen table as Hermione told her friends the startling news. Molly Weasley was horrified. Your poor mother, she said, holding a shocked hand to her mouth. Ginny looked confused. I don't get it. They were married. Why give up Hermione? Arthur's face was troubled. It would have been fantastic scandal, and people would have thrown it in their face constantly. George snorted in disgust. Well, boo-hoo. She was their daughter, and to save face they just gave her away. He looked at Theo apologetically. That's a real shitty thing to do. Theo nodded and leaned back. I agree. My mother wouldn't have had a choice, though. My gran, her mother-in-law, was a real dragon. Awful woman. She ran that house with an iron fist. The letter my dad sent me said that they hadn't been given another choice, and refusing my gran could have gotten my mother and Hermione killed. Family honor and all that. Ginny looked scandalized. That's disgusting. It wasn't just her fault. Theo shrugged, and Arthur very smartly changed the subject. So, will you be claiming Hermione then, announcing this? Theo nodded. I will, yes. I don't care that they wanted to keep it a secret. She is my sister, and everyone will know that. Hermione rubbed her scar and gave a weak smile at Harry, who was watching her closely. You okay with all this, Hermione? Harry asked carefully. She shrugged. I have to be, don't I? And I would much rather Theo just announce it than it be some breaking story by Rita Skeeter. Ron grunted at this, his face a bit pale. But Hermione, you're rich now. Theo laughed and then shrugged. Not really. She won't take a damn nut from me. Hermione flushed. I don't need money. I got a brother. That's all I want. Theo seemed taken aback, and then he smiled at her and hugged her. I never wanted a sibling, but I am damn happy to have you. Everyone laughed and the tension evaporated. Molly made it clear that since she and Arthur were Hermione's magical guardians, that meant Theo was their child to look after as well, never mind that both of them were over age, and proceeded to make sure that Theo knew to come whenever Hermione did. Theo was clearly overwhelmed, but acted a perfect gentleman. Harry got over the shock quickly, as did the other Weasleys. It was just Ron who was still struggling with it all. He cornered Hermione after dinner, his face still upset. Is this why you didn't date me? Why have you been avoiding me all summer? Hermione sighed. Ron, we both agreed not to date, and you have been just as busy at the ministry this summer as I have. Ron went a little red, but shrugged. But you didn't tell me about this. I thought we were best friends. Hermione flushed this time and then hugged Ron. I did not just tell you. I didn't tell Harry or anyone else. I needed time to get used to all of this, and wanted time alone with my new brother. The war was pretty terrible for him too, Ron. There was a snort, but he seemed to realize that arguing with her about this was not in his best interest. I want you to know that I'm here for you, okay? Hermione nodded and kissed his cheek. Thank you, Ron. Harry bid her good night, and she left much happier that everyone was updated about her new situation, and very glad that they had accepted Theo so warmly. The next day, however, was Theo's turn to share his secret. Theo had invited his friends over before Hermione would arrive, to have time to give them a warning. Draco Malfoy sat staring at him like he had grown an extra head. Goyle looked confused, and Blaise Zabini looked highly amused. Oh man, a war heroine is a knot. This is fucking priceless, Blaise said, raising his glass to Theo. Theo flinched but rolled his eyes. Yeah, I'm sure my ancestors are proud. Zabini snorted as Greg Goyle stood up, still looking confused. But she's a mudblood. Theo fought for patience. It wouldn't do to lose his temper with his friends. He was sure there would be plenty of opportunities to do so in the next few weeks, especially as they started their 8th year of school. She was raised by Muggles, yes. However, she is my sister. My full sister, Theo said slowly. Draco looked up at that. How can they tell? I mean, how do they know that your mom... His voice trailed off at Theo's dark look, but he regained his bravado quickly. Bloody hell, Theo. I won't be the only prick asking you this. How do you know? Blaze answered, though. A charm. It can tell if you are half or full siblings. Draco swallowed and then said, Well, shite. Goyle shook his head. Why'd they give her to muggles, though? Theo sighed. Safer that way, I guess. Dad worried she would look too much like my mother, and he wanted her as far away from the family as possible. My gran was evil. She threatened to kill the baby if they didn't make her disappear. He said he even gave the baby a potion to change the color of her eyes. They were originally blue like mine. Theo rubbed his head absently. Haven't told Myanie that yet. Blaze whistled at that, his eyes widening. Lovely family you have there, not? Theo chuckled. Yeah, I burned Gran's portrait right after I read Dad's letter. I won't have her saying rude things to my sister. Draco grunted, but he nodded. Good, but what about the rest of us? We made her life hell. She was tortured in my bloody house. Theo lost his good humor. I know, but you didn't. Draco waved him off. No, it was your sister. Yeah, we didn't. But even if my aunt had known that, she still would have done that. Theo sighed. And my gran threatened to kill her when she was a baby. I guess I understand what it's like to have shitty relatives, Draco. Blaze snorted. That's great. You forgive us. But what about her? Goyle spoke up. She hates us. Blaze nodded. Well, you two especially were complete prats. Draco sighed and sat back, taking a long drink of his whiskey. She is probably going to curse the fuck out of us. Who would blame her? Blaze held up his glass again and laughed. Not me. I'm going to enjoy the show. Theo snorted but looked a little concerned. Just don't be total wankers. She might forgive you, but she won't curse you. She knows you lot are my friends. Draco snorted at his friend. I think you're underestimating her hatred for me. Theo looked uncomfortable and poured himself another drink. Well, whatever happens, you better not curse her back, Draco. Draco gave him a rude look. No kidding, he said sourly as he sank back into the couch. Goyle sat back down, looking a bit frightened, while Blaze kicked his feet up on the coffee table with a large grin on his face at his friend's discomfort.